Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes, two sons of a son of a plumber, two brothers who became WWE superstars in completely different eras, yet their paths still crossed on multiple occasions. But were any of these occasions enough to satisfy a specific desire shared by Cody and Dustin? Before 2013, the brothers had very little to do with each other, but a couple of brief interactions in Royal Rumbles which did always garner a good reaction from the crowd, until Dustin returned to the WWE for another stint to form a tag team with his half-brother Cody and their legendary father Dusty Rhodes as manager. The Rhodes brothers won the tag team championships twice, once as Goldust and Cody Rhodes, and the other as Goldust and Stardust, remember him? But their momentum did not last long on either occasion. Despite their success as a tag team, what the pair really wanted was a match against each other at the Showcase of the Immortals WrestleMania. But unfortunately, WWE officials did not feel the same way. The match did happen, but at Fastlane. A disappointment to say the least. Cody soon left the company, whilst Dustin stayed put, so any chance of a more significant match between the two was now very unlikely. Until 3 years ago in late 2018, when Cody Rhodes became one of the driving forces behind the introduction of a brand new wrestling promotion, which you may have heard of, All Elite Wrestling. And not long after, Dustin Rhodes' requested release from the WWE was granted, only to be confirmed as Cody Rhodes' opponent for AEW's inaugural pay-per-view Double or Nothing in their YouTube show Road to Double or Nothing, that shed from his celebrated Goldust character. Dustin spoke about an unexplained rift and the many differences between him and his little brother, and essentially claimed that he would be fighting not only to prove to the fans that he could still perform to a standard that had been raised by the performers of today, but also to teach Cody some humility and respect. Two things in particular Dustin thought Cody lacked in regards to their unstable relationship. On the next episode of the Road to Double or Nothing, Cody responded by placing emphasis upon the generation versus generation element of the match, and declared, "I'm not here to kill Dustin Rhodes, I'm here to kill the Attitude Era." Cody asserted that the best from the Attitude Era did not compare with the best from his era, and made a reference to the stigma of how poorly his fellow peers were treated by the older generation. Dustin was a representation of the era that Cody wanted to end once and for all. The big stage that this match warranted was finally realised. AEW's first pay-per-view, the MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada. No gimmicks, no stipulations, just a straight wrestling match between two brothers. A tale of two brothers. What's up wrestling fans, my name is Aaron and this is Wrestling by Wardridge, and welcome back to Under Analysis Season 1 Chapter 6, where in today's video I will be looking at the match between Dustin Rhodes and Cody Rhodes from AEW Double or Nothing 2019. If you're new here, welcome to the channel, and if you're returning, it's absolutely marvellous to see you again. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, please hit that like button, give it a share across social media, and hit the notification bell to be notified when I release new videos on the channel, as well as Chapter 7 of Under Analysis, which I will be hinting towards at the end of the video, so you've got to stick around. Cody Rhodes, alongside his wife Brandi, makes their grand entrance first, but before he enters the ring, Brandi hands him a sledgehammer from underneath the ring. Cody makes his way back up to the stage and then proceeds to obliterate a throne that had been placed on the stage with the sledgehammer. Then Dustin Rhodes makes his way to the ring, introduced as the Natural. Earl Hebner signals for the bell. But before Cody and Dustin can lock up in a collar and elbow tie-up, there is just over a minute of both men circling each other, teasing an attack and listening to the crowd, who were not only chanting "This is awesome," but also for their late great father, Dusty Rhodes, which Dustin acknowledged by pointing to the heavens. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love it when there is a minute or two before the action begins where the wrestlers can really build up the excitement and the anticipation. The two competitors lock up and then break apart. They go for another lockup, but Cody floors Dustin with a back heel trip and then showboats with a cartwheel before taunting Dustin with a Stardust pose, which garnered a pretty big reaction from the crowd. A callback to their previous match perhaps? Cody puts Dustin in a headlock until Dustin escapes by sending Cody into the ropes. But before Dustin can react, Cody falls to the ground and then hits Dustin with his patented uppercut. Cody throws Dustin to the outside of the ring and then hits him with a tope suicida. The younger brother poses again as Cody begins to show some arrogance whilst Dustin is selling. Cody picks Dustin up and looks to send him over the guardrail, but something goes awry, so he Irish whips him into the ring apron instead. However, Dustin counters it into a tiger feint kick below the bottom rope. We're then treated to an awesome spot where Dustin climbs onto the ring apron to perform a flipping senton onto Cody, much to the delight of the crowd. Impressive athleticism from the 50-year-old. He rolls Cody back into the ring, and after executing a bulldog, Dustin takes Cody into the corner and then hits him with 10 shots to the head. Dustin is incredibly over with the crowd as he manages to regain control of the match. Dustin then sets up for Dusty's bionic elbow, but Cody takes a powder outside of the ring. A smart move by Cody to slow down Dustin's increasing momentum. It actually looks as if Cody might walk out of the match, but he does eventually return to the ringside area. He has a swig of water, hands the bottle back to Brandi, and then rolls back inside the ring. We see a standing switch by Cody. He pushes Dustin into the ropes and then distracts Hebner, which allows Brandi to hit Dustin in the head with the full bottle of water. If it wasn't clear before, it certainly is now. Cody Rhodes is working this match as a heel. A choice which people may deem unnecessary, but it's one that does make sense, firstly when you consider Cody's promo in the build-up, and secondly his arrogance and the cheap interferences from Brandi would only help to establish Cody as a heel in the eyes of the audience. Cody hits Dustin with an elevated gutbuster before attempting a cover, but Dustin kicks out at 2. Cody then works over Dustin's limbs. He goes for another cover, but he's still unable to put Dustin away. Dustin attempts to fight back, so Cody follows up with an Irish whip, but it's reversed. Cody dodges a shoulder block and then hits Dustin with a move synonymous with the Rhodes brothers, a snap power slam. Cody covers, but Dustin kicks out. Dustin attempts to fight back again, so Cody Irish whips him again. But this time Dustin manages to hit Cody with a clothesline. He hits another standing clothesline, and then it's his turn to Irish whip Cody. Cody counters it and looks for the big back body drop, but Dustin falls to his knees and hits his patented uppercut. I'm loving the pace of this match so far. It's fluctuating between different tempos, but it never veers into one extreme. Dustin sends Cody into the corner. He then places his left leg on the second rope, hits Cody with another uppercut, and then places his right leg on the other second rope, as the crowd quickly notices that Dustin is setting up for Shattered Dreams. Another cool nod to the past. But Cody rips off the middle turnbuckle pad and then chucks it at Dustin's feet. A clever move as Dustin turns his back on Cody to launch the pad into the crowd, which gives Cody enough time to remove his legs from the ropes. Dustin charges, but Cody uses a drop toe hold, sending Dustin into the exposed middle turnbuckle face first. Cody resumes by placing his boot on the back of Dustin's head, driving his face into the bottom turnbuckle, which draws the ire of Hebner. And off the back of this distraction, Brandi hits Dustin with a cheap shot. Dustin rolls to the outside of the ring, but Brandi attacks again with a spear to a chorus of boos, a reaction that Cody and Brandi needed. Hebner suspects foul play and sends Brandi to the back. She doesn't leave, so out comes good old DDP to forcibly send her to the back. I thought it was a great booking decision to have Brandi ejected from ringside, because whilst her actions have helped to establish Cody as a heel, I think any more interferences probably would have detracted from the quality of the match. Meanwhile, Dustin is still selling on the outside of the ring as the camera pans close onto his face, which is now a crimson mask. Dustin has been busted open badly. Cody lays in some shots to Dustin's open wound, and then sickeningly wipes his own brother's blood across his chest. Dustin is already selling the blood loss perfectly by staggering around on unsteady legs and constantly rubbing at his eyes, unable to see. Cody attempts a cover back in the ring, but Dustin isn't done just yet as he kicks out at 2. Cody then nails Dustin with a stiff kick to the head, but Dustin manages to get back to his feet only to completely miss a wild swing at Cody. Great psychology from Dustin just to show how badly his vision has been affected by the blood. Cody hits Dustin with a drop kick, covers, but Dustin gets his shoulder up again. Cody's facial expressions tell a great story of deep frustration, and this is exemplified even more by the following stiff shot that Cody gives Dustin right between the eyes. Dustin stumbles back to the corner and then just crumples down onto the mat. Cody stomps a mud hole into Dustin, he then lifts him up and Irish whips him hard into the opposite corner. However, Dustin still shows some fight as he pounds on the mat to draw energy from the crowd. Cody goes for another Irish whip, but Dustin counters into one of his own. Dustin instinctively attempts his own snap power slam, but Cody sees it coming, and then hits a kneeling Dustin with a curb stomp. 1, 2, Dustin kicks out. But then we see the grisly aftermath as blood is literally pouring from Dustin's head. The level of drama emanating from this moment and the match itself is only enhanced by the audible gasps from the crowd and even the commentary. Cody hits a diving double axe handle which sends Dustin back down onto the mat. He goes for another, but Dustin manages to avoid it, and this time the Natural is able to connect with his snap power slam. Dustin goes for a cover, but Cody kicks out at 2. Dustin looks to resume his comeback, but Cody takes Dustin down by grabbing his leg before transitioning into the figure 4 leg lock. The submission yields an incredibly visceral image as Cody is screaming in frustration whilst a blood-soaked Dustin is screaming in agony. Cody actually almost wins by pinfall after striking Dustin in the head with a hard punch, which sent both of his shoulders to the mat for a 2 count. However, Dustin is eventually able to reverse the hold, thus diverting the pressure onto Cody, which extracts a huge cheer from the crowd. However, Cody is able to reach the bottom rope, which breaks the hold. I think Cody could have sold the reversed figure 4 for a little longer before rising back to his feet. Nevertheless, he does, and then he removes his weight belt with bad intentions in mind. Hebner has a problem with this though and takes the belt away from Cody, which allows Dustin time to recover so that he's able to hit Cody with a reverse atomic drop. He then picks up the weight belt, which Hebner left in the corner. He pulls down Cody's tights and then whips his exposed buttocks. A fun moment which also works as a physical metaphor for Dustin punishing his younger brother. Cody hits Dustin with a back elbow before rushing at him, but Dustin kicks Cody in the midsection and then amazingly performs a code red for a very close 2 count. A fantastic near fall which the crowd loved, and they rightfully give the brothers a standing ovation as Cody and Dustin slowly make their way back to their feet, selling their weariness. Dustin lifts Cody to the top turnbuckle and then performs a huge superplex, and then straight afterwards hits a beautiful elevated neck breaker. Dustin covers, but Cody gets his shoulder up. The near falls just keep getting better and better. Dustin then looks for a crossroads, but Cody escapes and then nails his older brother with a low blow. I actually find Cody's nefarious actions to be quite ironic, as a lot of these cheap heel tactics were commonly used by wrestlers in the Attitude Era, the era that Cody wants to destroy, whereas Dustin, arguably a product of that era, has solely relied on his wrestling ability. Cody then hits Dustin with a disaster kick and then follows up with the crossroads. 1, 2, Dustin kicks out. He just will not stay down, and Cody does not believe it. It's written all over his face. The crowd chants "Fight Forever" as the two brothers have to use each other as leverage to stand up. Dustin strikes first with an elbow to the head, and then it's his turn to hit a crossroads. 1, 2, Cody gets his shoulder up again. Both men gradually rise to their knees and just stare at each other, realizing that neither man wants to give an inch. They stand up and begin to trade hard right shots to cheers for Dustin and boos for Cody. Cody falls onto his back, hits his second uppercut, but Dustin responds with a kick to the midsection drops to his knees, and then hits his second uppercut. Cody hits a bicycle kick, he runs the ropes, and both men collide, sending them back down onto the mat. This feels like an absolute war. Both men could just not give any more. Dustin desperately attempts to cover, but Cody kicks out at 2.5. Both competitors rise to their feet once again, selling their bloody asses off. Dustin slaps Cody, which inadvertently gives him a burst of adrenaline, so that Cody is quickly able to pick Dustin up and then nail him with a devastating vertebreaker. Hebner starts a 10 count, but Cody stops him. He lifts a prone Dustin back to his feet and then performs a second crossroads. 1, 2, 3. Cody Rhodes wins the match. The victor starts to make his way back up to the ramp, but then he rolls back into the ring after noticing Dustin removing his boots. Cody tells Dustin that he doesn't get to retire yet because he needs a partner for a future match with the Young Bucks. But he needs more than just a partner. He needs his older brother. Dusty's sons embrace in an absolutely incredible emotional moment. And what an incredible match. One that felt like it came right out of the 80s. The match told a fantastic emotionally charged story, primarily based on Dustin's courageous display of heart and determination. Despite fighting against a far younger opponent, against impaired vision because of the blood in his eyes, the blood loss itself, and the heel actions of Cody and Brandy, which of course was another story in of itself. Cody relying on these actions to stay one step ahead of Dustin at all times. The facial expressions and the body language shown from both men were excellent and only helped to fuel the excitement and the emotion. Some may argue that the match was slightly overbooked. I think that it's a valid point to make, but I would say if there was any overbooking, that it was only isolated to the first half of the match, as after Brandy was removed from ringside, the match came a lot more focused on its central story. However, personally, I didn't find any of the match to be offensive or unnecessary. As for the psychology of the match, very, very good. Dustin's selling of the blood loss was absolutely amazing. I loved how he let his lack of vision affect his performance, and he constantly looked to be on unsteady legs. I mean, sometimes nowadays you'll see a wrestler running around like nothing's happened to him, yet he's just wrestled a 30 to 40 minute match. Great work by Dustin. And Cody was certainly no slouch either. The selling of his exhaustion, especially towards the end of the match, was sublime. He also used classic heel psychology to draw heat from the crowd, despite ultimately being a babyface outside of this match. However, I thought there were a couple of times in this match where some of the moves didn't really have a direction. Perhaps Cody could have worked over a body part to rectify this. Nevertheless, it's not enough for me to mark down the psychology from a 5. As I mentioned before, this match had a very old school feel to it. Some people may argue against my rating for the work rate here, but I thought that it was simple, yet still imaginative. There was practically no high risk offense, there were no botches, we saw a surprising amount of athleticism from Dustin, and nothing felt repetitive. Maybe one too many Irish whips, but I don't think it was much of an issue. It's very refreshing when the work rate takes a backseat to the storytelling without suffering. As for the excitement of the match, sure there were no major spots to hype up the crowd, but the story alone was good enough to get the crowd heavily invested into this match. Not to mention the high level of drama there was thanks to all of the incredible near falls, and when Dustin got badly busted open. Speaking of which, I thought Dustin getting busted open was timed perfectly, as not only did it signal the second half of the match, it also shifted the focus of the story onto himself. The pacing of the match was terrific. It was on the slower side, but not once did I find it to be boring. Dustin and Cody never rushed anything, which undoubtedly contributed to the success of the storytelling and the psychology. The finish was definitive, and a runtime of 22 minutes and 30 seconds went hand in hand with the pacing, as an extra 5 or 10 minutes could have easily made this match more of a slog. Dave Meltzer gave this match 5 stars, and personally I'm inclined to agree with him. Not every aspect was perfect, but some of them definitely were, which is why I think this match warrants the full 5 stars. But let me know what rating you would give this match in the comment section down below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, guys. I bloody love making these. Please remember to hit that subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WrestlingByW. Give the video a share, crossroads that like button, and code red the notification bell to be notified when I release new videos on the channel. I hope you all have great days, guys, and I shall see you all for the next one. Bye bye.